Oh,吓死我了, that was scary, guys. I'm scared. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we are talking about a mousepad that's been generating quite a bit of hype in the community recently, the Kurosun Ninja. So I wasn't going to try this pad originally. I was thinking this would be another new random pad released with nothing special about it, just a bit of random hype. But many other reviewers out there and enthusiasts were telling me that I actually need to try this, especially given the pads that I like. So I was like, okay, if every one of you guys is going to vouch for this, then I'll give it a go. So I reached out to Tekkusai, the designer of this pad and founder of Kurosun, asking if it was possible to get a review unit. Now, needless to say, Tekkusai delivered, and I really want to give him a huge shout out for the way he handled everything for myself and for a few of the others here in Australia that got this mousepad. Chatting with Tekkusai, we actually discussed our top 3 pads. And obviously, in his top 3 pads, Kurosun Ninja was there. It's designed to his own personal preferences, he has bias, understandable. But the next 2, 1, the Lamzu Energon. 2, the Hayate Otsu. Now if you guys have ever looked at my mousepad spreadsheet, you'll know the top pads are the Energon, the Hayate Otsu, and the P51 Mustang. So basically, me and him have extremely similar preferences that he can think the Energon is one of the best smooth pads and the Otsu is one of the best textured pads. And so after hearing that, I was even more excited to try this pad because I just knew that this was going to be something I liked. A while later, players from Evil Genius's Valorant team have also been trying this pad. They made Twitter posts that I saw, Demon1 was trying this, and I think even Boostio is using this at VCT Champions LA right now. This pad is extremely unique. I find it really hard to describe, so stick around while I try and ramble on. The quick summary is that I consider this an S tier pad. It retains super well balanced speed and control. The raw performance of the surface is probably one of the best I've ever tried. And I genuinely think that for the vast majority of the population, this pad's gonna blow you away. So if you look at the pad, it looks textured, but yet it's perfectly smooth to the touch. The glide isn't exactly smooth focused like the Energon, because you can feel feedback through the skates. But it's a nicer feeling than any smooth cloth pad will ever provide, and yet it glides like one. What's more, is that this pad wasn't even designed with the intention of being heavily performance focused, but rather they wanted to balance out aesthetics and performance. So aesthetics was a large concern. This is just an extremely good pad to play on. Unfortunately, I won't be maining this pad due to personal preference, but if I didn't have the Energon Pro, for example, then I'd be more than happy to use this. So my personal gripes were, as per usual, I wanted a 500 by 500 sizing just because I am extremely low sense and I put my entire arm on the pad. Also, I prefer X-Soft base rather than mid base, and I also demand perfect arm sleeve glide. Now, it's not to say that Kurosun doesn't work with arm sleeves, and for the vast majority of the sleeve users, this is going to be perfectly acceptable. It's just that if you've ever tried the Energon or the Esports Tiger Triune, and you know how those feel with a sleeve, then you can never really go back to another pad that doesn't glide quite like those. By the way, this is indeed the Lamzu Thorn, so review for this coming up shortly as well. This thing is a beast. So moving to the details, features, and unboxing. The pad comes shipped in this envelope. Now initially I thought this was going to be what the pad comes in, but no, this is actually a shipping box. The shipping envelope itself has been customized to Kurosun. And once you open this, the pad then comes actually in another black envelope. So that was very surprising and was a very nice feature because both of these have been customized and the packaging here is flawless. Like, I'm a huge fan of this. This feels super nice. The cardboard's nice. You can tell it's premium and high quality. I believe the pad costs 50 USD from Kurosun or whatever retailer you might get it from. It measures at 490 by 420 by 3 millimeters thick. Very standard mousepad sizing these days. And the base is alpha cell. The pad also has a design on it. The bottom right corner here has the Kurosun logo, but this isn't exactly heat stamped on quite like the image itself. This is something you can touch and feel. Really high quality print nonetheless, and I love the quality. Talking about base first. This pad is an alpha cell base. It comes in mid thickness and mid hardness. Unfortunately, Tekkusai himself is a person who prefers mid pads rather than X-Softs, so I'm the opposite. While this isn't my preferred softness, I can definitely say that this is a high quality mid base. So rather than those that are supposed to be a mid base but still feel weird for whatever reason, this is proper quality. One thing to note, however, is that the alpha cell here is different to the alpha cell used on the PureTrack P51 Mustang. So at this point I can't really say which one's the common alpha cell that people think of when we talk about alpha cell. Is it the P51 kind or is it this kind? I do want to say, the alpha cell on the Ninja here doesn't seem to be as good as that used on the P51 Mustang in terms of suction onto the table. The P51 Mustang is the most sticky pad I have ever tried to date. Like, that shit does not move on your desk, and you literally need to hard peel it off every time you want to unstick it. The alpha cell on the Kurosun here doesn't stick as much, so it's just regular lifting. There's no peeling. Both have perfect functionality as a base, however, and does not move at all, so that's nothing to be of concern. Just know that this isn't the same type of alpha cell that you'll need to peel off your desk. Moving to stitching, the stitching on the Kurosun Ninja is level with the surface, and it's also in white stitching for a cleaner aesthetic look. Now, I'm a big fan. I wish more companies did that. It's very thin and extremely high quality. I know Tekkusai paid close attention to how the stitching design came out, and I'm glad to say that it paid off. This is the industry gold standard. Literally nothing negative to comment about. One thing people need to realize is that it's actually far more difficult to do equal or below surface stitching on these 3mm thick mid-softness pads compared to those that are 4mm thick and soft or X-soft, because the stitching thickness is inherently set regardless of pad thickness, right? It has to be able to pinch the pad together, and the cloth material has to maintain its own density and whatever. You can't physically compress this even more. Therefore, the thicker and plushier pads are just much easier to have stitching below or equal to the surface because you're pulling something thicker together rather than pulling something that's already extremely thin to be even thinner. Now we can talk about texture. And this is the interesting part. This is the part that made me say I'm so amazed by this pad and I really don't know what to say. Because upon inspection of the pad, if you got this pad and you looked at it, it looks like a textured pad. Similar to, say, the Hayate Otsu or the Focus Ambition. And yet it seems as if they got sandpaper on those pads and just sanded it down until it became a perfectly smooth surface. So you'd imagine a textured pad to be rough to the touch. And yet this is probably one of the top 3 pads I've ever felt to physically touch and glide my arm around. I just don't understand how it works. Furthermore, mouse glide retains feedback on the skates, and yet it's just a perfectly smooth glide that usually you only get with smooth cloth pads. So I just don't know what to say. This is like they combined the two kinds of pads. And it doesn't feel like if you're on, say, the Energon or the Triune, where sometimes you're like, oh, it feels like I'm floating and there's nothing underneath my pad. You can feel this pad, but yet it also kind of glides like those ones. I just don't get it. I just can't say it. I also want to mention that this pad is immensely humidity resistant. They designed it by constantly tightening the weave, and therefore it prevents moisture from being trapped inside, and it's a very nice consideration in the design. Essentially, it's just one of a kind and unique, and that's all I can really say about it so far. Now, in terms of arm sleeve glide, the pad is still on the very good side. However, it still does fall short to perfect sleeve glide pads such as the Energon or the ESP Tiger Triune or the P51 Mustang. The Ninja here does add a little bit of resistance, but the glide is still extremely good, and I think most people will be perfectly happy with this. On a side note, this pad is perfect to use without a sleeve. If anything, the skin glide is so perfect. This is probably the closest thing I've tried to making me willingly take my sleeve off and use it sleeveless since I started using a sleeve. If I was to ever use a pad sleeveless, it would be this. That's just how good the glide is on the skin. And I honestly have to say, if you get this pad, just don't use a sleeve. Use it without one. Moving to speed and control. I think the speed and control on this pad is on the medium side. It has low dynamic friction and high static friction, meaning it feels extremely easy to use and glide around, and yet has good stopping power. I'd consider this pad to be at similar levels to the P51 Mustang or the Energon in terms of that speed and control, definitely in that medium category. So if you like pads around that kind of speed, and you've watched the channel for a bit and you know my personal preferences and my preferred speed, this is for you. Here's a bit of a glide test. The thing glides perfectly, and then you can do small movements, and it's got good stopping power. So who should buy this? If the review makes it sound like your kind of preferred speed and feeling, you like these smooth things to the touch, you like good feedback on your skates, you like medium speed, then this pad's a no-brainer. I recommend this to every single one of you out there and reckon it's worth a try. This could be your potential endgame. This could do it. If this pad came in a 500x500 with a 4mm X soft, or not even that, just make it 500x500, I'd probably give this an S+. So once again, huge shout out to Tekkusai and Kurosun for sending this out for review. They've also stated they're looking to continue to improve on the Kurosun Ninja, so they're going to make even better versions of this in the future at some point. And they have also got different models on pads to release still. For a first entry into the market, Kurosun has dropped an absolute banger. Give yourself a pat on the back, and keep up the good work. I look forward to reviewing all future Kurosun products as well, and I can't wait to see what they have cooking. See you guys in the next video.